Welcome back to another edition of Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. I'm your guy, DeShields II. Make sure y'all smash that like button and make sure you guys remain engaged in the content. And if you're new and if you like what you hear, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. But the point of this video, I want to talk to you guys about 5 Philadelphia Eagles who I believe will be under tremendous pressure entering the 2023 season. Now, pressure varies, right? It varies based on your position. It varies based on your circumstance. But the bottom line is, I have 5 players that have been on my mind lately that I believe have to have big years or at least have to take that next step in the 2023 season. So let's jump right into it, you guys. The number one guy on my list is Jordan Davis. Now, Jordan Davis, he's interesting because Jordan Davis came out of Georgia, one of the best defenses in college football, national champion. He was 6'6", 340 pounds, and he had an amazing combine. But this is what happens most of the time. A lot of teams get enamored with the combine, and they forget to watch the film. And if you watch Jordan Davis's film, he wasn't really a stat sheet stuffer. He never was. That's just the reality of his situation. He's a nose tackle, a zero tech, a one technique, and he's not really there to really get sacks or get big numbers. He's there to really take up space, take up blockers, and create lanes, create pass rush lanes for the linebackers and the edge rushers, right, and the guys around him. So he's more so a linchpin of the defense. He's a guy that makes it easier or supposed to make it easier for everybody else. But the Eagles decided to trade up for him and draft him at the 13th overall pick. And this season, in the 2022 season, he only played 13 games because he suffered injuries. So he had a setback in terms of his development. But overall, we got to be honest. Jordan Davis underachieved when we think about what we expected from him, especially when you consider the type of athleticism we thought we was getting when you saw the combine, right? No one ever saw a guy 6'6", 340 pounds move the way he moved. So the Philadelphia Eagles thought they were getting a blue chipper. They thought they were getting a slam dunk draft pick, but clearly that wasn't the case. And I don't really know what's going on with Jordan Davis internally, but from what we've been able to see on the field, he's been hit or miss. He's been here one week, disappeared the other week, right? In the Super Bowl, he was non-existent. I think he only played 12 or 14 plays in the Super Bowl, so he wasn't really a factor. And again, he's a young guy entering year 2 of his career. I don't want to say all is lost for him because it's not. Right? He has so many more opportunities to get things right. But again, when you're the 13th overall pick and you only can accumulate 18 total tackles, that's not a good look in my humble opinion. And on top of that, Jordan Davis only accounted for 26% of the defensive snaps that was available to him. So that means whenever he had a chance to get snaps, this isn't talking about the injury time or anything like that. Whenever he had an opportunity to get snaps, he only accounted for 26% of the total defensive snaps in the 13 games he's played. That's not a good number. Is it conditioning? Is it talent? Is it the understanding of the playbook? Is it his commitment to his training? I don't understand. I don't know. Is it the fact that he lacks fundamentals? We can debate whatever it is. But the bottom line is Jordan Davis was a 13th overall pick, and I think that he can take his game to the next level. I want to make that very clear. I think he can, but it all remains to be seen. And I'm not going to call him a bust. He's far from that yet. But this season, we have to see something. We have to see why he was brought in, because if you drafted him to simply be a run stuffer, you kind of overdrafted that guy. If he only is going to be here to be a run stuffer, you overdrafted him. But if he can take his game to the next level where he can play outside of the zero tech or the one technique, if he can take his game to a level where he can play 2-eye or 3 technique, right? Now we're in business, because again, that athleticism, that type of movement, that motor just doesn't disappear. But again, there are a lot of players who are literally training for the combine and that's it. But that type of athleticism that they're showing in the combines isn't translating to real in-game action. But the fact that we know he has it means that you can tap into it. Now, Jordan Davis, the pressure is on you, my brother. And I was excited when the Eagles drafted him. I actually met Jordan Davis in person. Real cool dude, really happy-go-lucky guy, right? Real down to earth. But again, Javon Hargrave is gone. this is an opportunity for Jordan Davis to take his game to another level. He has to take his game to another level. It's just no ifs, ands, buts about it. But I'll leave it at that, you guys. Jordan Davis is the first guy on my list that would be under pressure in the 2023 season. Let's move on to the next guy, and that is Kenneth Gainwell, running back. Now, Kenneth Gainwell's situation is very interesting because he played behind Miles Sanders for 2 seasons, and Kenneth Gainwell is now entering year 3, and as of today, he is the lead back for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not saying he's the number 1 back or he's the best running back on the roster. I'm not saying that, but he is the lead back because of the pecking order that we know of from last season. The pecking order was Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, and everybody else after that, right? But Kenneth Gainwell has an opportunity to take his game to another level. He has an opportunity to take advantage of what's in front of him. Miles Sanders is not here anymore. So naturally, Kenneth Gainwell's snaps will go up. Kenneth Gainwell, over the past few seasons, has only accounted for maybe 28, 29% of the snaps available to him. And he's been a very healthy individual, played every single game. So to only account for 28 or 29% of the snaps, that's definitely going to go up, especially with Miles Sanders being gone. And look, the Eagles did bring in Rashad Penny, right? They still have Trey Sermon back there, and they brought back Boston Scott, who was a guy that I believe is going to challenge him directly because their skill set is a bit similar. But overall, this running back room is far from being set in stone because, again, you have guys that are fighting for something. And Kenny Gainwell can very well lose snaps to any one of those guys if he doesn't take his game to the next level. I know entering the 2022 season, a lot of people weren't high on Kenny because they felt like he didn't really take his off season too seriously. And again, I'm not one to make that assumption. I'm not there when he trains. I'm not there when he puts in the work in the offseason. I don't know what's going on with him internally. I can't speak for his mindset because I don't know him as a person. All I know is what I see on the field. And Kenny Gainwell, if we're being completely frank, he's that dual threat running back when used properly, right? He has, in my opinion, he has a good nose for the end zone. He's accounted for 5 touchdowns in 2021 and 4 rushing touchdowns in 2022. Actually, grand total, 6 touchdowns in 2021, 5 rushing, 1 receiving, and 4 touchdowns in 2022, all rushing. So, and also he's averaged over 4 yards a carry throughout his career. So Kenny Gainwell, in my opinion, he knows how to maneuver in traffic. I think he has a good read on his blocking. I think he understands spacing as well, and I think he also is a very smart runner, a little bit of a smarter runner than Miles Sanders. But again, his touches are going to go up. And I expect, and this may be lofty, but if he's going to be the lead back, if he's the running back that Nick Sirianni also desires, the dual threat running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield, I'm expecting between 850 and 1,050 of total yards offense. That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting between 850 and just over 1,000 yards from scrimmage total when it comes to Kenny Gainwell, because that's the kind of player he is. So if that materializes in 500 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards, I'll take that. If that materializes in 600 rushing yards and 300 receiving yards, I'll take that. Because again, I'm not expecting Kenny Gainwell to be a bell cow back, but what I am expecting Kenny Gainwell to be is a productive member of this team and to be used the way he's meant to be used. He's a great pass catcher, and I expect that role to increase, especially with the Philadelphia Eagles transitioning more into becoming more of a passing team, more of a high-octane offense, right? And it's going to be hard to replace Miles Sanders' production that especially the production we got in 2022. It's going to be really hard to replace that. But when you think about the running back room as it's presently constructed, it's still an unpredictable group. Rashad Penny, injuries. Trey Sermon, we have no idea what he's capable of, right, when given the opportunity. Boston Scott, he's probably the only steady guy in that room, but still Boston Scott, a guy that how much stock can you really put into using him, but so much. But I like Boston. This isn't a slight, but Boston Scott, again, not a bell cow back, not really a lead back either, more so that complimentary back. Kenny Gainwell, can he elevate his game from being just a complimentary back? So again, I think there's a lot of pressure on Kenny Gainwell entering the season, depending on what the Eagles do at the running back position in the draft. We have no idea what they're going to do, but Kenny Gainwell, as it stands today, as of today, he is the lead back. And I think there's a lot of pressure on him entering the 2023 season to be able to at least replace or supplement that production they lost with Miles Sanders. Again, I'm expecting between 850 to 1,050 of total offense from Kenny Gainwell, rushing and receiving. That can materialize however it materializes. Like I said, 500 rushing, 500 receiving, 600 rushing, 300 receiving. It doesn't matter to me, but I need between 850 yards to 1,050 yards of pure production from Kenny Gainwell. Let's move on to the next guy. Now, Nakobe Dean. This is a really interesting one because Nakobe Dean has been a fan favorite, and he has barely gotten any snaps on the field. That's the funny thing about it. A lot of people are really high on Nakobe Dean because of what he's done in college, and the little bit of snaps that he has gotten, like in that Tennessee Titans game where he came in for about, I don't know, maybe a drive or two, and he got like 5 or 6 or 7 tackles, and he had like 1 tackle for loss. A lot of people are high. A lot of fans, I should say, are really high on Nakobe Dean, and the starting linebacker role is wide open. Davion Taylor has a chance. Nicholas Morrow, the guy they just got from the Bears, he has a chance. I don't know what Sean Bradley's ceiling is. He's probably just a special teamer. Christian Ellis is still on the roster. So the linebacker position is wide open. I know some people like to call Hassan Reddick a linebacker, but he's more of an edge rusher to me, but that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is Nakobe Dean has a lot of pressure on him because of the fan base. Remember, you guys did this. Nakobe Dean was supposed to be one of the best linebackers in his draft class, but he fell all the way to the 3rd round because of injury rumors or so-called alleged injury history, right? He actually was being compared to Devin Lloyd, the linebacker that got drafted in the 1st round from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Devin Lloyd went to Utah, played in the Pac-12. So a lot of people were comparing those dudes. A lot of people were higher on Devin Lloyd because of his size. A lot of people weren't as high on Nakobe Dean because of his size, because of the alleged injury history. But whenever I've seen Nakobe Dean play in college, he's made an impact. So when you draft Jordan Davis and you draft Nakobe Dean in the same draft, you kind of expect similar production that you saw in Georgia. But it doesn't always work out that way. Neither of those guys saw the field but so much. But Nakobe Dean is a guy who barely saw the field at all. As a matter of fact, when it comes to Nakobe Dean, the guy who was healthy for all 17 games, when you think about all the snaps that he was able to accumulate, because again, he was healthy for all 17 games, so he had an opportunity to get snaps in every game. Nakobe Dean only accounted for 34 total snaps. 34 total snaps in 2022, which is only 3% of the total snaps available to him. Nakobe Dean barely got any time on the field, barely. So, again, a guy who only accounted for 13 total tackles on the season, 9 solo, 4 assists, 1 tackle for loss. This is a big year for Nakobe Dean, especially with the linebacker room being wide open the way it is. TJ Edwards is gone. Kaiser White is gone. Those guys got money in Chicago and Arizona, respectively. So this is a really big opportunity for Nakobe Dean. Can he step up and be that star linebacker that everyone is expecting him to be? I'm not going to say he can't. I'm not going to say he will. But we just don't know. All we do know is he has a high motor. He's a really, really smart guy. And we have high expectations. And we know he comes from a championship program with a championship-level defense in Georgia. So can Nakobe Dean take his game to the next level? We will see. But the defense isn't going to be as talented as it was in 2022. So it leaves things wide open for Nakobe Dean. He has an opportunity to break out, but he will be challenged by Davion Taylor, a guy who is an athletic freak. He will be challenged by Christian Ellis. He will be challenged by maybe a linebacker the Eagles may draft. The Eagles don't draft linebackers too high. So he still has an opportunity to be a starter. I think he will end up being the starter. But again, he has to prove it and show it to us. But remember, you guys, y'all the ones that put this pressure on him to be this guy. So I'm expecting Nakobe Dean to be this guy. Let me make it clear. I like Nakobe Dean. This ain't got nothing to do with, love, hate, or whatever. I have high expectations out of him as well. But remember, y'all put this pressure on him all year, just saying that he's just going to be a walk-in for the starting job. He better get that starting job. I'm telling you right now, that's my expectation. And I'll leave it at that. Let's move on to my next guy, the 4th guy. This guy is probably under the most pressure outside of Jordan Davis, but Quez Watkins, wide receiver 3. Quez Watkins had a very turbulent playoffs. He had a turbulent Super Bowl. He dropped probably one of the most biggest catches in the game. If he catches that ball, that puts the Eagles immediately in the red zone to take the lead or score in the Super Bowl and potentially win the game in and of itself. Quez Watkins, in my opinion, had a really bad year. He had moments where you were like, yeah, Quez, good catch. He had a moment where, wow, good touchdown. We needed that. But not necessarily a consistent presence that we really would like. Now, Quez Watkins, 6 feet, 193 pounds, not really the biggest guy, but he's big enough for the position, has a lot of speed, only 24 years old, going on 25 when the season starts. So he's a young guy, and he has a lot of space, a lot of opportunity to turn this thing around. But Quez Watkins did not have a good year at all. He admittedly says that he regressed in 2022, especially after A.J. Brown got there, right? So that's not a good sign to me. When you think about in 2021, where he had 43 catches, 647 yards, averaged 15 yards a reception, you know, he's clearly not a touchdown guy, right? But granted, he had 3 touchdowns in 2022. He only had 1 touchdown in 2021 and 1 touchdown in 2020. But 2021 was by far his best year because it was only him and Devontae Smith. Jalen Reagor obviously fell off the face of the earth. But 2022, he played in all 17 games, had 51 targets, 33 catches. Now, here's the funny thing about it, right? In 2021, he had 62 targets, 43 catches. And in 2022, he had 51 targets, 33 catches. So when he lost 11 targets compared to 2021 and 2022, he lost 10 catches from 2021 to 2022. So, okay, that's about normal. But his yards per reception dropped significantly. He went from averaging 15 yards a reception to only 10 yards of reception in 2022. That's not his style, right? And also, he wasn't really able to break away like we thought he would, right? We saw that one game in Minnesota where he had that bomb touchdown from Jalen Hurts. But other than that, you know, he wasn't really a threat. And I got to be honest, I'm not a fan of Quez Watkins' route running ability. I don't think he has a strong route tree at all. I think he rounds off routes at times. I think he does a commit to the ball at the catch point. There's been times where he's been either beat to the ball or he's been out-muscled for the ball. And it either led to an incomplete pass or a turnover. So again, Quez Watkins is a guy who admitted that he regressed in 2022. Can he take his game to the next level? Can he rewrite his career? He's entering year 4. This is the final year of his contract. And don't be surprised if the Philadelphia Eagles draft another wide receiver to replace him, right? Because if he doesn't have a strong season, I think the Philadelphia Eagles let him walk and they draft another guy or move on, maybe sign a guy, whatever it is. The Eagles probably want to keep the cap hit low, so they're probably going to draft another wide receiver to compete with him, most likely. But again, he's entering year 4. He has to make or break it this season. It's just that simple. Let's move on to the next guy. And this guy is probably the least talked about on the Philadelphia Eagles roster. This guy is probably the most low-key guy on the roster. Number 5, Milton Williams, D-tackle/DN. You know, Milton Williams is a very fascinating prospect. He's a fascinating player because he's a bit of a tweener. He can play D-tackle, but he also can play, you know, the 3 technique as well. He also can play 4-eye. You know what I'm saying? So I'm curious to see what Milton Williams' ceiling is. Milton Williams is a guy who has maintained below the radar for quite some time because he's been behind guys like Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave. You know, he wasn't highly drafted like a Jordan Davis. You know, he played behind Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, all those guys, right? But Milton Williams is entering year 3, and he's expected to step up after losing all those guys that I mentioned: Hargrave, Suh, Linval Joseph. Fletcher Cox did come back, but he's expected to step up, if you ask me. Milton Williams, 24 years old. Well, he will be 24 years old by the time the season starts, and he hasn't even hit his prime yet. But whenever he has had opportunities, if you ask me, I think Milton Williams has been as productive as he possibly could be. I want to put this in perspective. Milton Williams is a guy who's been healthy every game for both seasons of his career. And out of all the snaps that have been available to him, he's accounted for 41% of the defensive snaps in 2021 and 36% of the defensive snaps in 2022. So his snap count went down a little bit. That's to be expected when you bring in Jordan Davis, Linval Joseph, and Ndamukong Suh. That's kind of expected, especially when those guys were hot Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, those guys were going off. So it's expected for the snap count to go down a little bit. But Milton Williams is a guy, when he did get his opportunities, right? When he did get his opportunity in 2022, out of those 36 percentage of the snaps, 4 sacks, 36 total tackles, 19 solo, 17 assisted, 9 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits. In 2021, he had 2 sacks, 30 combined tackles, 15 solo, 15 assists, 6 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits. So Milton Williams doesn't just waste his time out there. He really is an aggressive dude. He has a high motor. He knows how to get to the quarterback when given the opportunity. But he also is playing around guys like Hassan Reddick, playing next to guys like Fletcher Cox and Dominic Sue, Javon Hargrave, Brandon Graham, so on and so forth. So he has plenty of opportunity to get to the quarterback. He's still going to be playing next to some pretty good guys. Graham, Reddick, Cox, JD, if he takes his game to another level. We still got Derek Barnett right there as well. I probably should have put him on this list. But again, Milton Williams is a guy that I actually have a lot of faith in. He's a tweener though, and he doesn't really have that much size, or the size that you would expect at the defensive tackle position. So he may get moved around when it comes to defending the run, but his motor runs so hot, he's never going to stop coming after the ball carrier. He's never going to stop going after the quarterback. So Milton Williams is a guy that I expect to take his game to the next level, but also it all remains to be seen. I like Milton Williams, and maybe the Philadelphia Eagles draft another DT. That's going to put more pressure on him, and maybe he's a guy that's better as a rotational dude. We just don't know, but as of right now, he's considered a starter next to Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis, depending on the type of front they play, a 5-man front, whatever. But Milton Williams is considered one of the top D tackles on the roster. Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams. Fletcher Cox is going to be dealing with a lot of young dudes in that defensive tackle room, so they're going to have to follow his lead. And again, we don't know if the Eagles may draft Jalen Carter. We don't know if they're going to draft another D tackle later in the draft. We don't know. But I expect Milton Williams to take his game to the next level. But again, let's go through the list really quickly. Jordan Davis, Kenneth Gainwell, Nakobe Dean, Quez Watkins, Milton Williams. I expect all these guys to make or take the next step in their careers, but let's not let it go unnoticed. These guys have a lot of pressure on them entering the 2023 season, and it's straight like that. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. Make sure you guys smash that like button if you like the content, if you disagree, or if you agree. Are there any other players that you believe are under pressure in the 2023 season for the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me know and comment below. You guys were locked in on Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. One love, stay humble, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay hungry.